There are moments in life when it feels like everything has been taken from you: opportunities, relationships, peace, even your sense of purpose. You may have prayed, believed, and stood strong, yet things still slip through your hands. But here is a truth you must hold on to. God never ends a story in loss. He is a God of restoration. And not only does He restore, He restores in ways that exceed your expectations, surpass your understanding, and redefine your future. Today, you are about to discover how to align your faith, your words, and your expectation with the promise that what was lost is not gone forever. It is being prepared for a greater return. God is not merely a giver who responds to needs in the moment. He is a restorer who intentionally revisits what has been broken, lost, delayed, or stolen and brings it back into your life with purpose and increase. Many people limit their expectation of God to provision. They believe He can supply what they need today, but they struggle to believe that He is concerned with yesterday's losses. Yet the very nature of God reveals that He does not overlook what you have been through. He sees every setback, every missed opportunity, every season where things seem to fall apart, and He carries the power and the desire to restore it in a way that reflects His goodness and faithfulness. When something is given, it meets a present need. But when something is restored, it speaks to the heart. Restoration reaches back into places of disappointment and turns them into testimonies. It is deeper than provision because it deals with what seemed final. It addresses the areas where you thought, "It's too late for that now," or "that part of my life is over." God does not operate within those limitations. Time does not restrict Him, and loss does not intimidate Him. What appears irreversible to you is still completely redeemable in His hands. You may have lost years to wrong decisions, lost relationships that mattered deeply, lost momentum in your dreams, or even lost confidence in yourself. But God does not just move forward as if those things never mattered. He moves with intention to restore. He has the ability to take what looked wasted and make it productive again. He can take what was broken and make it whole. He can take what felt empty and fill it beyond its original measure. There is something powerful about understanding that God restores with increase. When He restores, He does not simply return things to their previous state as if nothing happened. He brings wisdom where there was once ignorance, strength where there was once weakness, clarity where there was once confusion. The restored version of your life carries a depth that the original never had. That is why restoration is not just about getting things back. It is about stepping into something greater than before. Many people live with a mindset that focuses only on what they can receive next. But a restoration mindset believes that nothing is truly lost when placed in God's hands. It shifts your perspective from regret to expectation. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, you begin to look forward with confidence, knowing that God is actively working to bring restoration into every area of your life. This understanding changes the way you approach your faith. You stop seeing your past as a closed chapter and start seeing it as a place where God is still able to move. You begin to expect that what was taken, what was delayed, and what seemed destroyed is not beyond recovery. You recognize that God's nature compels Him to restore, to rebuild, and to renew, and that He is already at work bringing things together in ways you cannot yet see. Loss has a way of speaking loudly to the human mind. It tries to convince you that what is gone forever, that the chapter has closed, and that nothing meaningful can come from what remains. It creates a sense of finality, as though the story has reached its conclusion. But in the realm of faith, loss is never the end. It is often the very place where a new beginning is quietly taking shape, even when you cannot see it yet. What feels like an ending to you is often a transition in God's plan. When something leaves your life, it does not automatically mean failure. Sometimes it means repositioning. Sometimes it means preparation. There are moments when things must be removed, shaken, or even stripped away so that something stronger, greater, and more aligned can be established in its place. But if you only look at the loss, you will miss the purpose hidden within it. It is natural to grieve what is lost. It is natural to question why things did not work out the way you expected. But you must be careful not to build your belief system around that loss. If you allow loss to define your thinking, it will limit your ability to see what God is doing next. Faith requires you to look beyond what is visible and trust that there is movement happening behind the scenes, even when everything in front of you seems still. There is a pattern that runs throughout the journey of faith. What appears to be a setback often becomes the setup for something greater. What looks like a closed door becomes the very reason a better door opens. What feels like a delay becomes the space where character is developed, where wisdom is formed, and where strength is built. These things cannot always be formed in times of comfort and ease. They are often forged in seasons where something has been lost. When you begin to understand this, your perspective shifts. Instead of seeing loss as something that disqualifies you, you begin to see it as something that can position you. Instead of assuming that everything has gone wrong, you start to consider that something might be going right in a way you do not yet understand. This does not deny the pain of loss, but it refuses to give loss the final word. Faith speaks in the middle of loss and declares that there is more ahead. It refuses to accept that the story ends here. It holds on to the belief that God is still working, still arranging, still preparing something that will make sense of what you have been through. Even when there is no visible evidence, faith continues to stand on the assurance that loss is not the conclusion, but a turning point. There are things that can only be born out of loss: new vision, deeper trust, a clearer sense of purpose, and a stronger connection to God. These are not small things. They are foundational. They shape the person you are becoming and prepare you for what is ahead. Without the experience of loss, these qualities might never reach the depth required for what you are called to step into. So even when it feels like everything has been taken away, you must remind yourself that this is not the end of your story. There is still movement, still purpose, and still a future being formed. What you cannot see right now does not mean nothing is happening. It simply means the process is still unfolding in a way that requires trust beyond what your eyes can perceive. There is a common assumption that restoration means getting back exactly what was lost, in the same form, at the same level, as if nothing ever happened. But divine restoration does not operate on that level. It goes far beyond replacement. It exceeds the original. It takes what once was and elevates it into something greater, richer, and more meaningful than before. When God restores, He is not trying to simply return you to where you used to be. He is moving you forward into a higher place. The restoration carries increase within it. It carries growth, maturity, wisdom, and a deeper understanding that you did not possess before the loss occurred. So what comes back into your life is not just a return. It is an upgrade in every sense. You may be expecting God to bring back the same opportunity you once had, the same relationship, the same level of success, or the same kind of breakthrough. But God's thinking is not limited to your expectations. While you are looking backward, He is already working ahead. He is not focused on recreating your past. He is focused on designing your future. And in that future, what He restores will carry more value, more impact, and more purpose than what you originally lost. There is something powerful about the way God multiplies what has been taken. What seemed like a subtraction becomes the foundation for addition and increase. What looked like emptiness becomes the space where something greater can be filled. This is why you must guard your expectations. If you expect only what you had before, you may not be prepared to receive what is greater than before. Divine restoration often comes in forms that stretch your imagination. It may not look like what you lost, but it will carry more within it. It may not come the way you planned, but it will fulfill a deeper purpose. God sees the full picture, not just the moment of loss. He understands where you are going, not just where you have been. So when He restores, He does it in a way that aligns with your destiny, not just your memory. There are times when people hold so tightly to what was that they almost resist what is coming. They measure everything by what they used to have, and in doing so, They limit their ability to recognize the greater thing God is bringing into their lives. But faith does not cling to the past. Faith looks forward with expectation, knowing that God's best is not behind but ahead. What God restores carries a different weight. It carries the lessons you have learned, the strength you have developed, and the perspective you have gained through your journey. These things add value to the restoration, making it more stable, more meaningful, and more impactful than the original ever was. You are not the same person you were before the loss, and because of that, what you receive now will be handled with greater wisdom and purpose. God's restoration is never random. It is intentional, measured, and aligned with something greater than what you can currently see. He restores in a way that not only blesses you, but positions you for what is ahead. So what comes back into your life is not just for your comfort. It is for your calling, your growth, and your future. This is why you must expand your vision. Do not limit God to simply giving back what you lost. Allow your faith to rise to a level where you expect increase, multiplication, and transformation. Understand that what is coming will not just match your past, it will surpass it in ways that reflect the fullness of God's ability to restore beyond measure. Faith is the determining factor in whether restoration remains a promise you admire or becomes a reality you experience. It is not enough to simply believe that restoration exists in a general sense. Faith makes it personal. It takes what is written, what is promised, and what is possible, and brings it into your own life with conviction and expectation. Without faith, restoration stays distant. With faith, it becomes active, present, and alive within you. Many people wait for visible signs before they choose to believe, but faith does not operate that way. Faith begins where evidence is absent. It stands firm when circumstances suggest the opposite. When everything around you seems to confirm loss, delay, or impossibility, faith rises up and declares that restoration is still at work. It does not deny reality, but it refuses to be limited by it. It looks beyond what is seen and anchors itself in what is promised. There is a difference between hoping something will change and believing that it is already in motion. Hope can remain passive, but faith is active. Faith speaks, faith expects, and faith positions your heart to receive. It causes you to align your thoughts and your words with what God has already made available. Even when nothing appears to be happening, faith continues to stand, as if the answer is already on its way. What you believe internally will eventually shape what you experience externally. If your belief is filled with doubt, hesitation, and uncertainty, it becomes difficult to recognize or receive restoration when it begins to unfold. But when your belief is rooted in faith, you begin to see differently. You notice opportunities where others see obstacles. You recognize movement where others see delay. Faith sharpens your awareness and opens your spirit to what God is doing. Your words are closely connected to your faith. What you consistently say reflects what you truly believe. If your words are filled with defeat, regret, and negativity, they will reinforce a mindset that resists restoration. But when your words are aligned with faith, they begin to create an atmosphere where restoration can take hold. Speaking in agreement with what God has promised strengthens your expectation and keeps your focus steady even in uncertain moments. Faith also requires patience. It is not a momentary decision. It is a continuous posture. There will be times when it feels like nothing is changing, when the gap between where you are and where you believe you should be seems too wide. In those moments, faith does not give up or retreat. It remains steady. It holds its position, trusting that what has been set in motion will come to pass at the right time. There is a quiet strength in faith that does not need constant confirmation. It does not rely on feelings or circumstances to sustain itself. It is rooted deeper than that. It is anchored in a confidence that God is faithful to fulfill what He has promised, even when the process is not visible. This kind of faith does not fluctuate with every challenge. It remains grounded, consistent, and unwavering. As faith grows, it begins to influence every part of your life. It changes the way you think, the way you speak, and the way you respond to situations. It replaces fear with confidence and uncertainty with expectation. Instead of being controlled by what has been lost, you become focused on what is being restored. Your mindset shifts from looking at what is missing to anticipating what is coming. Faith is not just a belief system, it is the channel through which restoration flows. It connects you to what God has already prepared and brings it into your present reality. It allows you to stand in the middle of uncertainty with assurance, knowing that restoration is not a distant possibility, but an unfolding reality that is drawing closer with every moment you choose to believe. Your words carry far more power than most people realize. They are not empty expressions or casual responses to what you feel in the moment. They are containers that carry belief, expectation, and direction. What you consistently say begins to shape the atmosphere around you and the mindset within you. When it comes to restoration, your confession plays a critical role in determining whether you align yourself with what God is doing or remain bound to what you have lost. Many people speak from their circumstances rather than from their faith. They look at what is missing, what went wrong, and what did not work out, and then they give voice to those realities over and over again. In doing so, they reinforce the very condition they desire to change. Words spoken in agreement with loss, defeat, and disappointment begin to settle into the heart, forming a belief system that resists restoration rather than welcomes it. There is a connection between what fills your heart and what flows out of your mouth. If your heart is filled with regret, your words will reflect regret. If your heart is filled with doubt, your words will carry doubt. But if your heart is filled with faith, your words will begin to declare something different. This is not about pretending that loss did not happen. It is about choosing not to let loss define what you speak going forward. Confession is not simply repetition. It is alignment. It is bringing your words into agreement with what God has promised, rather than what your circumstances are suggesting. When you begin to consistently speak words of restoration, you are training your mind to think differently and your spirit to expect differently. Even if your emotions have not caught up yet, your words begin to lead you in the right direction. There is a discipline involved in this. It requires you to become aware of what you are saying, especially in moments of pressure, frustration, or discouragement. Those are the moments when negative words try to surface most easily. But instead of allowing those words to take over, you make a conscious decision to speak life, to speak faith, and to speak restoration. Over time, this becomes less of an effort and more of a natural response. Your words also influence how you perceive opportunities. When your confession is rooted in loss, you may overlook moments that are actually part of your restoration. But when your confession is rooted in faith, you become more attentive, more aware, and more open to what is unfolding. You begin to recognize that restoration does not always arrive all at once. Sometimes it comes in steps, in pieces, and in moments that require you to respond with belief. There is also a creative aspect to your words. They set direction. They reinforce identity. They establish expectation. When you continually declare that your life is being restored, that what was lost is being returned in greater measure, and that your future holds increase, you are not just making statements. You are shaping the way you see yourself and your situation. This internal shift affects how you act, how you decide, and how you move forward. Consistency is key in this process. Occasional positive words will not override a constant pattern of negative confession. What matters is what you say repeatedly, what you allow to take root in your daily thinking and speaking. As you remain consistent, your words begin to carry more conviction, more belief, and more authority in your own life. Over time, what once felt like an effort becomes a reflection of who you are. Your language changes, your mindset shifts, and your expectations rise. You are no longer speaking from a place of loss, but from a place of confidence in what is being restored. Your words become aligned with faith, and that alignment creates an environment where restoration is not resisted, but embraced and welcomed into every area of your life. God does not limit himself to human patterns, predictable outcomes, or familiar methods. What you can imagine is often shaped by your past experiences, your understanding, and what you have seen happen before. But God's way of working goes far beyond those boundaries. He is not restricted to doing things the way they have always been done, and He is not confined to restoring your life through the same channels that once existed. This is why restoration often unfolds in ways that surprise you, stretch your thinking, and challenge your expectations. Many people unknowingly place limits on how restoration should happen. They form a picture in their mind of what it should look like, who should be involved, and when it should take place. Then they wait for that exact picture to come to pass. But when God begins to move differently, they struggle to recognize it because it does not match what they expected. In doing so, they can overlook the very thing they have been praying for simply because it arrived in an unfamiliar form. God's ways are creative, intentional, and often unexpected. He may use people you never considered, open doors you never noticed, or create opportunities that did not exist before. What you thought would come back one way may return in a completely different way, carrying greater value and deeper purpose. This requires a willingness to release your own assumptions and remain open to the possibility that restoration will not follow your script. There is also a timing element that can feel unpredictable. You may expect things to happen quickly, especially after a season of loss, but God is not working according to pressure or urgency. He is working according to purpose. While you are focusing on when something will happen, He is focused on how it will be prepared. He sees connections you cannot see, details you cannot perceive, and outcomes that go beyond your current understanding. What feels like a delay may actually be a necessary alignment taking place behind the scenes. Trust becomes essential in this process. When you cannot trace what God is doing, you must learn to trust His nature. You must become comfortable with not having all the answers and not seeing the full picture. This kind of trust does not come from understanding every detail. It comes from knowing that God is faithful and that His intentions toward you are good, even when the path is unclear. There are moments when restoration may come in a form that initially seems unrelated to what you lost. It may appear smaller, different, or even insignificant at first glance. But as it unfolds, you begin to realize that it carries something deeper, something that not only replaces what was lost, but expands it into a greater dimension. If you are too focused on a specific outcome, you may miss the value of what is right in front of you. Flexibility in your expectations allows you to move with what God is doing rather than resist it. It keeps your heart open and your perception clear. Instead of insisting that restoration must look a certain way, you begin to trust that whatever God brings will be right, complete, and aligned with your future. This shift frees you from frustration and helps you remain at peace even when things do not unfold according to your original plan. God's ability to restore is not limited by your imagination. In fact, what He has prepared often exceeds what you could have ever thought of on your own. He is able to combine circumstances, orchestrate events, and create outcomes that no human planning could achieve. This is why His restoration carries a sense of wonder. It reveals a level of wisdom and power that goes beyond human reasoning. As you begin to accept that God works in ways you cannot predict, you position yourself to receive more fully. You stop trying to control the process and start embracing it. You allow room for surprises, for new directions, and for unexpected blessings that carry greater significance than what you originally had in mind. Your perspective shifts from trying to figure everything out to trusting that what is unfolding is part of a greater plan that is working in your favor. Patience and trust are not passive attitudes. They are active forces that sustain you in the process of restoration. When something has been lost, there is often an immediate desire to see it returned quickly. The heart wants resolution, the mind wants answers, and emotions seek relief from the discomfort of waiting. But restoration is rarely instant. It unfolds over time, through stages, in ways that require you to remain steady, even when you cannot yet see the full result. Patience is what allows you to stay in position without becoming frustrated or discouraged. It keeps you from making rushed decisions out of fear or desperation. When you lack patience, you may try to force outcomes, reopen doors that were meant to remain closed, or settle for less than what is truly prepared for you. But when patience is present, you are able to hold your ground with confidence, knowing that what is meant for you does not need to be forced into place. Trust works hand in hand with patience. While patience governs your actions, trust governs your heart. It keeps your inner world stable, even when your external circumstances are uncertain. Trust is the quiet assurance that God is still at work, even when there is no visible evidence. It allows you to rest in the process rather than constantly question it. Without trust, waiting becomes heavy and filled with anxiety. But with trust, waiting becomes purposeful and filled with expectation. There will be moments in the journey where it feels like nothing is changing. Days may pass, then weeks, and even longer seasons, where you do not see clear signs of restoration. In those moments, patience keeps you from giving up, and trust keeps you from giving in to doubt. They anchor you in a place of stability, so that you are not moved by every shift in your circumstances or every negative thought that tries to arise. Patience also develops strength within you. It stretches your capacity to endure without losing your sense of direction. It teaches you how to remain consistent in your faith, your words, and your outlook, even when results are not immediate. This consistency builds a foundation that can support the weight of what is coming. Because when restoration arrives in its fullness, it often requires a level of maturity and stability that can only be developed over time. Trust deepens your relationship with God. It moves you beyond surface-level belief into a place where you rely on Him fully. Instead of needing constant reassurance, you begin to develop a quiet confidence that does not depend on circumstances. This kind of trust is not shaken easily because it is rooted in who God is rather than what is happening around you. As patience and trust grow together, they begin to shape your perspective. You no longer see waiting as wasted time. You begin to recognize it as a season of preparation, alignment, and unseen progress. What appears still on the outside is often active beneath the surface. Things are being arranged, connections are being formed, and conditions are being set in place for the right moment to arrive. This process requires you to let go of the need to control every detail. It asks you to release the pressure of trying to figure everything out and instead rest in the assurance that God's timing is precise. His delays are not without reason, and His pace is not without purpose. Even when it feels slow, it is intentional. Over time, patience and trust transform the way you carry yourself through the process. You become less reactive and more grounded. You are not easily shaken by setbacks or delays because your confidence is not based on immediate results. It is based on the certainty that restoration is already in motion and that what is being prepared will come at the right time in the right way with a completeness that reflects the faithfulness of God's restoration. It is not only about what God does for you externally, it is also about what He does within you internally. There is a deeper dimension of restoration that goes beyond circumstances, beyond material things, and beyond visible outcomes. It touches your mind, your emotions, your confidence, and your sense of identity. Because sometimes the greatest loss is not what left your life, but what it took from within you. Your peace, your courage, your clarity, and your belief in what is possible. When loss occurs, it can leave behind invisible wounds. It can create doubt where there was once confidence. It can produce fear where there was once boldness. It can make you question your worth, your direction, and even your purpose. If these internal areas are not restored, then even if external things return, you may not fully enjoy or sustain them. This is why God's restoration often begins on the inside before it becomes evident on the outside. There is a rebuilding that takes place within your thinking. Old patterns of doubt and limitation begin to break, and new patterns of faith and expectation begin to form. You start to see yourself differently, not as someone defined by loss, but as someone being shaped for something greater. This shift is not always immediate, but it is powerful. It changes the way you approach opportunities, the way you handle challenges, and the way you carry yourself in everyday life. Emotional restoration is also part of this process. The heaviness, the disappointment, and the pain that once lingered begin to lose their hold. You may not even notice it at first, but gradually there is a lightness that returns. Peace begins to settle where anxiety once ruled. Joy begins to rise where discouragement once dominated. This does not mean you forget what happened, but it means what happened no longer controls how you feel or how you move forward. Confidence is rebuilt step by step. Where you once hesitated, you begin to move forward again. Where you once held back, you begin to step out with greater assurance. This confidence is different from what you had before because it is not based only on your own ability. It is rooted in a deeper trust that God is guiding, strengthening, and sustaining you. It becomes more stable, less dependent on outcomes, and more grounded in faith. There is also a restoration of vision. Loss can narrow your perspective, causing you to focus only on what went wrong. But as restoration takes place within you, your vision begins to expand again. You start to see possibilities you could not see before. You begin to dream again, but with greater wisdom and clarity. Your goals are no longer shaped only by desire, but by a deeper sense of purpose. This internal work often happens quietly, without much attention. It is not always as visible as external restoration, but it is just as important, if not more, because it prepares you to receive, to handle, and to sustain what is coming. Without this inner restoration, you might return to old patterns that could lead to the same kind of loss again. But with it, you are equipped to move forward in a new way. As this transformation continues, you begin to realize that restoration is not just about getting back to where you were. It is about becoming someone stronger, wiser, and more aligned than you have ever been. The person you are becoming is capable of carrying more, seeing more, and doing more than the person you were before the loss occurred. This is where restoration becomes complete, not just when things are returned, but when you are renewed from the inside out, when your thoughts, your emotions, and your identity are brought into a place of strength and wholeness that supports everything that is being rebuilt in your life. In the end, you must come to a place where you settle this truth deep within you. Nothing that has been lost is beyond God's ability to restore. What seemed final was never final in His plan. What looked like the end was only a transition into something greater, something deeper, and something far more meaningful than you could have imagined. Every loss, every delay, every moment of confusion has not been wasted. It has all been part of a process that is shaping you, strengthening you, and preparing you for a level of restoration that goes beyond what you once had. Not just externally, but internally, where your faith has grown stronger, your perspective has expanded, and your trust has become more stable. You are no longer the same person who experienced the loss. You have been refined. You have been stretched. You have been developed in ways that could not have happened any other way. And because of that, what is coming into your life will not only be greater, it will be handled differently, appreciated more deeply, and sustained more wisely. Now is not the time to look back with regret or to measure your life by what is missing. Now is the time to stand firm in faith, to align your words with what you believe, and to trust that even when you cannot see it, restoration is already in motion. Things are being arranged. Doors are being prepared. Opportunities are being formed in ways you do not yet understand. Let your expectation rise. Let your thinking expand. Refuse to limit what God can do by what you have experienced before. What He is bringing into your life will not just match your past. It will surpass it in ways that reflect His power, His wisdom, and His faithfulness. Hold your position. Stay steady in your faith. Keep your words aligned. Remain patient and trust the process, knowing that everything is unfolding at the right time and in the right way. Because when restoration fully manifests, it will be undeniable, complete, and greater than anything you could have asked for or imagined